Hello, welcome to From Caracas. I'm Laura Prada, and in this opportunity we'll be talking with Cristina Bracho, who is a lawyer and magister in public law and human rights. With her, we will be talking about the first month of President Nicolas Maduro's second term in office. So I welcome you, Cristina.
Thank you.
Welcome to From Caracas. I want to ask you, how has the international community received or welcomed this second term in office of President Nicolas Maduro?
We have to start by saying that the international community is a lot of countries, and it's very hard to say that to find a way, a only way that community receive Maduro, because they are a little group of big countries that they have put all their effort to say that it isn't legal or a legitimate right to Maduro to be president in this moment. But there are a lot of other countries that they are allies of Venezuela, like Russia or China, and these countries have any problem with President Maduro. We are now in a context that United States is trying to recover the power in South America and have take Venezuela like an example to prove that the influence can be returned and changed from or for their interest.
Is that why in recent times we've seen different kind of strategies to get close to these progressive movements in Latin America and to cause their decline? Is that part of that strategy the U.S. is implementing?
Yes, we have to remember that United States have tried to have Latin America as their own space, and the last decade was a moment of change with President Chavez, and the new government of Latin America have gone to the left, have tried a national identity. Now we have seen lawfare, we have seen the loss of power in Argentina, and they are trying to do a movement to recover the power. And in Venezuela is a very symbolic place because all the change start here. They want to take Venezuela to restart and forget all this time of new geopolitics in region.
So what exactly is lawfare? Why it has undermined popular leaderships and why it has prevented to return to that inclusive and social models in Latin America? Why is the U.S. using this technique of the lawfare?
Because now we are in a moment that people have studied, can read, and we talk a lot of human rights. Military puts aren't easy to stay in time because we have a rejection from torture, from all these forced movement. And now we have seen that the changement is better when democratic subjects get into. Lawfare is a way to take judiciary and make this power, these civilians, to make the change, the politics change. We have seen that in many Latin American countries.
For example?
Like even in Venezuela. The prosecutor office have a lot of relation with the Organization of American States, and we have been in a moment that there are a lot of meeting of judges, a lot of meeting of prosecutors, and that space make a possibility that to use this subject and want to build an only way to have democracy. And you take this subject, this political subject, like Dilma Rousseff or even Cristina Kirchner, that they have been popular leaders, and you say, well, no, they have this big problem with justice, with corruption, with a lot of operations that are similar in all Latin American countries, and you say, well, these popular leaders are all corrupt, and they can continue, and you have the independence of the justice, like the way to nobody to see the politic motivation. And this is a way of control by even the international organizations.
But besides that lawfare measure and kind of game the US is playing, there is also mediatic war against not only Venezuela, but we're talking specifically about Venezuela, but to those countries too. Why does the media, the mainstream media, persist in calling President Maduro a dictator and an usurper? How has the Venezuelan government responded to this mediatic campaign? But we can see also that there are some self-proclaimed presidents, some people that are calling them presidents.
I would love to answer you by remembering an opinion from Serge Halimi, who is a journalist, a French journalist. He says that people generally want the same thing in life, being happy, have a family. People doesn't want war. The war is a concern from normal people. For try to have an opinion that people feel that it's fair to do a war, you have to use medias. You have to say that the people in that country, he doesn't have a normal life, or they aren't like you. You need to say that they are living in a catastrophe, that they don't have the thing you have or want the thing you want. You need this campaign to make a war something like is fair. You need to say, if you don't do that, people will continue to suffering, or they will come from they will try to do something bad to us because they are our enemies. When you read that and you see what happened in the war before the war of Kosovo, when you see that North Korean people is something like Venezuelan to the people that they only see the medias, when you understand that the US use a lot of money in cultural space, you see that the space you need to do the war is that you need to make the people feel that it's okay to do that. Because you can go and say, hello, we are going to go to the border of Venezuela and we are going to give a lot of things that we don't send to Louisiana when the Katrina, or we don't have sent in Puerto Rico. You need that the people feel that the only option, that there's a duty to do that. That's why medias are so important for this.
But how that mediatic campaign add up to the lawfare? How do they combine? How why they are trying to they are using those two methods to change everything in Latin America?
Because when you see Latin American history, you understand that the case in Chile with Salvador Allende was that the United States needed to people don't feel that socialism can be democratic and can be good. In this moment, the power of Latin America, like a politic blocus and a space from China and Russia, is very dangerous for them, and they need to say, well, this leader you have isn't a good leader. Well, but people love this leader, Lula, by example. People love Lula, and you need media to say no. He's corrupt. He's a bad person. You need to say that Cristina isn't a good president, and in that way you work with the people, and after you say, well, it's okay in democracy if you don't respect the rule of law. After, if the law, the justice will come from you, and that's the method to make people feel it's okay, and don't see that it's a need from geopolitics to broke alternative to the only model that they want to have.
Talking about that mediatic war Venezuela is suffering, President Maduro has called for Venezuelans and the international community to defend the constitutional power, to defend peace, democracy, the constitution, the rule of law over everything. But how is he and the Bolivarian government doing it? How is it possible to maintain law, to keep law from running its, making its course, and to defend the constitutional power in the middle of all this campaign?
It's possible because Venezuelans have made their own constitution. People know the constitution, and it's easy when you have people that are in activity to say we have something to defend. We have to defend that we don't want the war. Venezuela doesn't want to come back to the violence. Venezuela doesn't want to be like Colombia. Colombia has been in an eternal war. Venezuela knows that we start the revolution with making a constitution. Venezuela knows that in 2002, the opposition came briefly to the power and say, well, we are going back to be Venezuelan Republic, not Venezuelan Bolivarian Republic. And that's a process that you have to be here and see that people are every day talking, how can I make better my community? We have to remember also that Venezuela have in this moment processes to make a new constitution, and people are living in a processes that say go to vote and have a new rule of law, or a moment that the opposition say I don't care about the constitution, I can go to anywhere and say I will change the power because the United States is with me. That's the situation in Venezuela.
But before we were talking also about self-proclaimed presidents, and now we are talking about Venezuelans making their own constitution and putting on law how they project their country to be. President Maduro was re-elected and approved, and he was sworn in, and we have this self-proclaimed president. Why is there a National Assembly in contempt, and why is there a Constituent Assembly? Would you explain for our audience specifically what is that?
We have to see that Venezuela have the same rules from the 2000 and before in political issues. We see that Nicolas Maduro was elected when Comandante Chavez died. After we have a lot of elections. One of them was the Assembly National election, and in that moment the opposition won the Congress from the first time since the revolution. In that moment they declare that Nicolas Maduro have 6 months to be out of power, and they start a conflict with the other powers. because they say that we are the only legitimacy power in Venezuela. And in that moment, there was a discussion about the election of three deputies of this corpus, and the tribunal said that we have to wait to see if this election was legitimate, and then we will see who is the deputy of Amazonas. The Assembly recognized that decision until July of 2017. In that moment, they say, no, we have decided that we are then going to recognize this decision, and we are going to put back these people into the assembly. In that moment, the judiciary said, you can do that because I am a power of the state, you have to recognize my power. And they decide to stop doing that and become like the only power in the state. We have seen that they have said that Venezuela haven't a president because they have abandoned the church. They have said, we have made a new tribunal, and tribunal that works in Bogota sometimes, in Miami sometimes, and that goes to the moment that in 2017 in Venezuela was a huge moment of violence. The moment of violence started because, like the parliament didn't want to respect the judiciary, Venezuela have any way to do normal thing that a state need to do. By example, have a budget. Another example is like, how can the state pay international contracts if assembly doesn't give the authorization to do that? And that moment the tribunal said, I will authorize you to do that. And then after 2 or 3 months of violence, the president asked people if they want a national constitution. They ask to do an assembly to do a constitution. It's
the constituency, the constituent assembly.
Thank you. And people vote for that, and that started the processes to do a new constitution and have all the power of the state, because the constitution say is that way. They have been since then 3 elections. We have new government, we have the election of the president that is called by this assembly after the discussion of the negotiation of República Dominicana. And after that space, we did the election because it was the last year of constitutional period. And Constitution say it's time to do the election. The electoral authority did the processes, and we vote. We have 3 options to vote, and Nicolas Maduro won because in Venezuela, to become a president, you need to have more votes than the other candidate. After that, the time passed. The assembly stayed with this situation like, okay, I don't exist in Venezuela because I don't want to work with the other representative of the state. I will go to do an international campaign, and I will say I don't recognize this president because I didn't won. They didn't won because they didn't go to the election. They didn't go to the election because you can choose to go or no in an election.
Now that you talk about Dominican Republic, I remembered something. I have many more questions, but we are running out of time. Is the Bolivarian government, is President Nicolas Maduro disposed in the disposition to hold dialogue with that opposition again to solve the current situation in the country?
Yes, he has said that every time he talks. The only situation that he say we are not going to discuss is that Venezuela is a sovereign country. We aren't going to accept any imposition. We aren't going to an election that in the constitution doesn't exist. And we have the intention to solve Venezuelan problems between Venezuelan peoples.
And one last question. Do you think there will be a US military intervention in Venezuela?
I don't think so, because Venezuela isn't such an easy country to go and make the war. And when you see the international response, even Lima Group, after a very tough position with Venezuela, said international military expedition no, on people in Venezuela, is result that they won't allow anyone to come in our territory.
Thank you, Ana Cristina. We've run out of time. I've got many more questions to make about the so-called Lima Group and etc. to keep explaining more about this topic, but it's very big, it's very wide. Like this, we've come to the end of From Caracas. Like this opportunity, we've been talking with Ana Cristina Bracho, who is a lawyer, magister in public law and human rights. With her, we spoke about the first months of the second term in office of President Nicolas Maduro. Thank you, Ana Cristina, once again for meeting us, for talking with us about this, and for making us for giving us a clear vision of what is going on in Venezuela these days.